Imagine arriving at your new duty station after months of training, deployments, and the grind of Army life. You step off the bus at Fort Hood, Texas, one of the largest military installations in the world, sprawling across 214,000 acres of central Texas scrubland and rolling hills. It's home to armored divisions, cavalry units, and tens of thousands of soldiers. Established in 1942 and named after Confederate General John Bell Hood, the base has seen generations of troops cycle through its gates, many heading to wars in Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. It's a place of discipline, camaraderie, and purpose. But beneath the surface of Reveille, PT formations and motor pools, something lingers. Over the decades, Fort Hood has gained a darker reputation, not just for the visible tragedies like high-profile incidents, unsolved cases, or clusters of suicides and unexplained deaths that have drawn national scrutiny, but for quieter, more personal breakdowns. Soldiers who arrive sharp and motivated slowly unravel. Sleepless nights turn into paranoia. Hallucinations creep in. Some chalk it up to the stress of garrison life, the heat, the isolation from family. Others whisper about the barracks themselves. Certain older enlisted housing blocks, particularly in areas like the older troop billets near the training grounds or legacy buildings from the Cold War era, carry stories that refuse to die. Footsteps in empty hallways at 0300. Shadows that don't match any living soldier. Voices calling out ranks or names from rooms long unoccupied. And the pattern repeats. Soldiers start seeing things, hearing things, feeling watched. Morale drops. Mental health appointments spike. And some end up in the psych ward at Carl R. Darnell Army Medical Center. Others never fully recover. Is it coincidence? The cumulative trauma of a base that sent so many into harm's way? Or is there something embedded in those concrete walls? Residual energy from accidents, training deaths, or the sheer weight of human suffering concentrated in one place? Tonight, we bring you first-hand accounts from soldiers who served at Fort Hood in the modern era. These are not ghost hunters or thrill-seekers. These are infantrymen, mechanics, medics, ordinary soldiers who experienced something extraordinary in the one place they were supposed to feel safe, their barracks. Chapter 1. The Shadow in Barracks, 47. My name is Specialist Ramirez. I served with 1st Cavalry Division at Fort Hood from early 2018 until my PCS in late 2019. After a year in Korea, I arrived expecting the usual grind: early mornings, motor pool Mondays, range time, and the slow burn of garrison life. They assigned me to one of the older troop billets, cinder block construction from the late 80s or early 90s, metal bunks, fluorescent lights that hummed even when off, and that permanent smell of industrial cleaner mixed with boot polish and old sweat. Room 212, second floor, end of the hallway in Barracks 47. Nothing special, just another place to rack out between duty days. The first month passed without incident. Wake up at 0430 for PT, formation, chow. Then whatever the platoon had on the training schedule. My roommate was PFC Jenkins, a quiet kid straight out of AIT, good at his job but kept to himself. We got along fine. No drama. Around the second month, small things started. I would return from CQ shift at 0600, dead on my feet, and find my wall locker standing slightly open. Not jimmied, not ransacked, just unlatched enough that the door had drifted an inch. I asked Jenkins if he had borrowed anything. He looked at me like I was crazy. I was crashed the whole time, man. Didn't even get up to piss. I started double-checking the latch before I left, but it kept happening. 3 times in 2 weeks. Then the footsteps began. Heavy combat boots on the linoleum corridor, slow and deliberate, usually between 0-200 and 0-300. They would approach from the far end of the hall, get louder, stop directly outside our door, pause for 5 or 6 seconds, then retreat the way they came. At first, I assumed it was an NCO doing health and welfare checks, or the CQ runner making rounds. I would sit up in my bunk, listening, waiting for the knock that never came. When I finally opened the door, nothing. Empty hallway. Lights buzzing overhead. No one. One night I decided to test it. I wedged my boot in the doorframe to keep it cracked open, left the overhead light on dim, and tried to sleep. The footsteps arrived right on schedule. They stopped at the threshold. I felt the temperature drop, like someone had opened a freezer in the room. A long shadow stretched across the floor from the hallway, tall and man-shaped, but there was no body casting it. The shadow simply stood there. No movement. No sound except my own breathing getting louder in my ears. After what felt like forever, but was probably 10 seconds, it withdrew. The cold lifted. The footsteps faded. Jenkins woke up enough to mutter, "Ramirez, you good?" "Yeah," I said. "Just the wind or something." We both knew there was no wind. The next morning I found 3 parallel scratches on my left forearm. Shallow but fresh, like someone had dragged fingernails across the skin. I had no memory of doing it myself, no dream I could recall. Just woke up marked. Jenkins saw them too and went quiet. We didn't talk about it again that day. Word travels fast in a platoon. Other guys started mentioning odd things. One said his boots would be rearranged in the morning, perfectly aligned at the foot of his bunk, like someone had done an inspection while he slept. Another heard a low voice say, "At ease," from an empty corner of the day room. We laughed it off, the way soldiers do. Sleep deprivation, too much caffeine, the barracks being creepy by design. But the laughter felt forced. Then came the night I saw the whole thing. I was cramming for my E5 promotion board, sitting at the desk with my laptop and notes, door closed, lights low. Around 0400 the footsteps returned. This time they didn't stop in the hall. The doorknob turned, slowly, deliberately, and the door pushed inward even though I knew I had locked it. I froze. A silhouette filled the doorway. Soldier in AC US, patrol cap or helmet, shadowing the face, shoulders squared, standing at parade rest. No rank, no name tape, no insignia I could make out. Just solid black where a person should be. It stepped inside 1 pace, stopped at the foot of my bunk, and stared down at me. I forced the words out. "Who are you?" No answer, but pressure built in my chest, like someone pressing both hands down hard. My lungs wouldn't fill. My vision narrowed to a tunnel. The shape didn't move. It simply existed there, and heavy and wrong. Then it was gone. Door still closed, locked. No sound of retreat. I sat there, shaken, until PT formation. That morning I reported to behavioral health. Told the provider I was having panic attacks, trouble sleeping, intrusive thoughts. They listened, asked the standard questions about deployments and stresses, prescribed something for anxiety, and told me to follow up. They called it adjustment disorder with mixed features. I didn't argue. I just wanted something to make the nights bearable. I requested a room move. Chain of command denied it. Suck it up, specialist. Everyone's got issues. So I started crashing in my car in the parking lot when I could. Better than lying there waiting for the footsteps. But Barracks 47 kept claiming people. One guy in our platoon missed formation 3 days straight. Said he couldn't get out of bed because something was sitting on his chest all night. Another tried to hurt himself with a razor in the latrine. Both got sent to the psych ward at Darnall. Both had clean records before moving in. Both described the same feeling: being watched, being weighed down, being slowly worn through. I still don't know what it was. A memory of someone who died there? Something that feeds on the stress we carry. The isolation. The monotony. The quiet fear that never quite leaves, even in garrison. All I know is that whatever lives in those walls doesn't leave when you do. I still wake up some nights reaching for my weapon, listening for boots in an empty hallway half a country away. Chapter 2. The Voice on the Third Floor. This is Sergeant First Class Morales. I retired in 2022 after 22 years, the last 3 as a squad leader in an infantry battalion at Fort Hood. We were housed in one of the renovated barracks blocks, fresh paint, updated HVAC, new flooring, but the bones of the building were still from the Cold War era. Thick concrete, narrow windows, long hallways that seemed to stretch farther at night. My platoon occupied the 3rd floor, NCO quarters mostly. It was quieter up there than the lower levels where the privates lived. Or it should have been. It started with the radio. I kept an old portable on my nightstand for the morning briefings, but I always powered it down before lights out. Around week 3 in the barracks, I began waking to static crackling at odd hours, usually between 01:30 and 02:30. Then a voice would cut through, low and measured, on the kind of clipped military cadence you hear on secure nets during live ops. Move to phase line Bravo. Hold position. Contact left. 12 o'clock. Suppressive fire. It sounded like a platoon in contact, urgent but controlled. I would sit up, reach for the radio. Nothing. Volume 0. Power off. Battery even removed once just to be sure. The voice kept playing for 30 seconds. Maybe 40. Then silence. Every 3rd or 4th night. I didn't mention it at first. Garrison life already has enough ways to make you question your grip. But soldiers talk. Private First Class Nguyen came to me during weapons draw one morning, eyes bloodshot. "Sergeant, someone was calling my name last night. From the stairwell. Clear as day. Nguyen, report to the CQ desk." I got up, checked. Nobody there. Stairwell lights were on. Empty. I told him to hydrate, get some rest, standard deflection. But 2 days later, Specialist Carter pulled me aside after chow. "Sarge, I heard it too. Not my name. Someone else's. Like a runner making bed checks. Rodriguez, check in. Rodriguez hasn't lived on this floor since last cycle." We started comparing notes quietly. Multiple soldiers on the 3rd floor reported the same thing. Names called in the middle of the night, ranks barked softly, orders given to rooms that had been vacant for months. The duty NCO was always downstairs, usually asleep or scrolling on his phone. No one was making rounds at 0200. One night it escalated. Carter burst into my room at 03:30, uniform half on, pale and shaking. "Sergeant, there's someone in my wall locker." I heard breathing. Slow, deep, like they were trying not to be heard. I grabbed my flashlight and followed him down the hall. His door was open, light spilling out. I rapped twice, coming in, then pulled the locker door wide. Empty. Just uniforms, boots, hygiene kit. But the interior air was wrong. Cold enough that my breath fogged for a second and scratched into the paint on the top shelf. Fresh enough that metal shavings still clung. "Help us." We stared at it. Carter whispered, "That wasn't there yesterday." I photographed it, then reported it up the chain the next morning. The first sergeant sent maintenance. They sanded it down, repainted, said it was probably old graffiti from years back showing through. But we knew the truth. The scratches were new. The voice didn't stop. It grew louder, more insistent. One evening during lights out, the entire floor heard it at once. "All personnel, stand to, incoming, prepare to repel." Like an old-school alert from a fire base in Vietnam or a patrol base in Iraq. Doors flew open, soldiers spilled into the hallway in PTs and boxers, some grabbing weapons out of habit, sweeping corners, thinking real contact. The stairwells were clear, the day room empty, just the fluorescent hum and the smell of gun oil from oiled rifles. After that night, Carter changed. He started missing PT, said he couldn't sleep because something stood at the end of the hallway every time he closed his eyes. A figure in older BDUS, helmet low, face shadowed. It never approached. It just watched. He described it the same way every time. "It's waiting, Sarge. Waiting for me to slip." He went to the chaplain first, then behavioral health. They ran him through the standard screens: acute anxiety, possible adjustment issues, maybe latent PTSD, even though he'd never deployed to a combat zone. They gave him meds, a temporary profile, light duty. But he kept deteriorating, lost weight, stopped talking much. One morning he didn't show for formation. We found him sitting on his bunk, staring at the wall, repeating, "It knows my name now." He PCS'd out a month later. The paperwork cited mental health concerns, honourable discharge with benefits. But before he left, he told me privately, "It's not just me, Sergeant. It's the building. It takes pieces." The voice kept going for others. Different names, different orders. Some started drinking heavier after duty. Fights broke out over nothing. Morale on the floor tanked. Even the guys who laughed it off at first started leaving lights on all night or bunking with friends in other barracks. I requested a barracks inspection, more cameras in the common areas. Nothing came of it. Chain of command chalked it up to high ops tempo, post-deployment stress bleed over, the usual garrison grind. Maybe they were right. Or maybe something else was already there. Something left behind from decades of soldiers cycling through, carrying their own ghosts. A voice that learned our language, our ranks, our fears. I still hear it sometimes when I'm alone in a quiet house. A low transmission in the distance. Hold position. Contact left. I turn the radio on to drown it out. But deep down, I know it isn't coming from any speaker. Chapter 3. The Cold Spot in Room 108. This is Corporal Hayes. I was motor transport. 1st Cavalry Division, assigned to Fort Hood in mid-2022. Single soldier barracks, first floor of a block that had seen better days despite the occasional facelift. Room 108. When the barracks manager handed me the key, he gave me a look. Half apology, half warning. "It's been empty a while. Let me know if you need anything moved." I figured it was just mold or bad plumbing. Soldiers talk. I'd heard the whispers about certain rooms being off. I didn't believe in that stuff. Not then. The first thing I noticed was the temperature. Thermostat read 72 degrees, same as every other room, but stepping inside felt like walking into a walk-in freezer. Not dramatic at first, just a chill that settled in your bones after a minute. I cranked the heat up to 78. Nothing changed. The air stayed cold, especially around the center of the room, right between the two bunks. A perfect circle, maybe 4 feet across where the cold was strongest. I tested it with my hand, outside the spot, normal room temp. Inside, skin prickled like I'd stepped into January wind. I ignored it for the first week. Long days in the motor pool, grease under my nails, back to the room to shower and crash. But the cold made sleeping hard. I'd wake up around 200 gasping, lungs tight, like the oxygen had been sucked out. I started leaving the window cracked, even though it was Texas summer. Humid heat outside, Arctic inside. Didn't help. Then the knocks came. 3 sharp raps, always on the inside of the door. Not someone knocking to come in. 3 deliberate strikes from the room side, like a fist against wood from within the panel. First time I heard it, I bolted upright, heart slamming. I checked the hallway. Empty. Door locked, deadbolt thrown. No one could have slipped in. I told myself it was the building settling, pipes expanding, something mechanical, but it happened again the next night. Same time, same 3 knocks. I started recording on my phone, set it up on the desk, pointed at the door, went to bed. Around 02:30, the knocks came through clear on the audio. 3 raps. Then, faint under the silence. Whispering. Not words I could understand at first, just low, urgent murmurs, overlapping like 2 or 3 voices talking at once. When I played it back in the daylight, the whispers sharpened. One sounded like, "Stay, stay here." Another like a name I couldn't catch. The chills weren't just temperature anymore. My battle buddy at the time was Specialist Torres. He started having the nightmares first. He'd wake up yelling about being trapped in the barracks during a fire, flames in the hallway, doors that wouldn't open, pounding on them until his hands bled. He'd sit on his bunk afterward, staring at nothing, sweat soaking his PT shirt. One morning he showed me his palms, red welts, like he'd really been hammering wood in his sleep. Neither of us remembered him getting out of bed. We both saw the handprint the same week. After a hot shower, the bathroom mirror fogged up. When it cleared, there was a clear palm print on the glass, larger than either of ours, fingers thick and calloused, positioned high like someone taller had pressed against it from the other side. We wiped it away. It came back the next shower. Same spot, same size. We stopped using that bathroom for a while, used the communal one down the hall. I couldn't take it anymore. I went to an old-timer NCO in the company, Staff Sergeant Whitaker, been at Hood since the early 90s. Over coffee in the DFAC, he listened without laughing. Then he told me the story. Back in 97, a soldier died in room 108, Private E2, motor transport like me. Faulty space heater leaked carbon monoxide overnight. No one checked on him for almost 18 hours. He was on CQ the night before, so his absence wasn't noticed until the next afternoon. Official report: accidental death. unofficial version from guys who were there. He was found slumped against the door, hand raised like he was trying to knock for help. Door locked from the inside. No note. Just a kid who suffocated alone. Whitaker said the cold spot was exactly where they found him. Some rooms remember, he told me. They hold on to the last thing that happened there. After that, I couldn't stay in 108. I started crashing on friends' couches off-post or in the day room when I could. But the dreams followed. I'd wake up in someone else's room feeling the same suffocation, the same pressure on my chest, hearing those 3 knocks echo in my head. I lost weight, couldn't focus at work, started snapping at people over nothing. I went to behavioral health, told them about the insomnia, the anxiety, the feeling of being trapped. They didn't ask about ghosts, they didn't need to. Diagnosed adjustment disorder, prescribed sleep aids, recommended therapy. Eventually, the chain approved a room swap, but the paperwork took weeks. In the meantime, I was chaptered out. Mental health separation, honourable conditions. My MOS dreams ended in that room. I still check the thermostat in every place I live. Still wake up sometimes, listening for 3 knocks on a door that isn't there. And I wonder if the cold spot is still waiting in 108 for the next soldier who doesn't believe until it's too late. Chapter 4. The Watcher at the Window. This is Private Lopez. I arrived at Fort Hood in spring 2023, fresh out of basic and AIT, assigned to an artillery battery in 1st Cavalry Division. They put me in one of the newer single-soldier barracks. Post-2010 construction. Thinner walls but better insulation, 2nd floor room with a view of the training fields. Room 214. My roommate was Specialist Grant, another new arrival, both of us E1s trying to figure out army life. The place felt clean, almost welcoming at first. Fluorescent lights that didn't flicker. Our fresh paint that didn't smell like old cigarettes. I thought I'd lucked out. The tapping started on the 3rd night. Soft at first, like a fingernail against glass, coming from the window. 2nd floor. No trees close enough to scrape the pane, no branches, no overhang. Just open field and distant sodium lights from the motor pool. I rolled over, ignored it. Thought maybe rain or wind. But it kept rhythm. Tap, 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 pause, tap, tap, tap. 3 sets of 3, like Morse code I didn't know. It stopped after a minute. I told myself it was the building cooling, metal frame contracting. Grant slept through it. The next night it came back, louder. I got up, walked to the window, pulled the blinds. Nothing outside, just black Texas sky and the glow of security lights. I pressed my forehead to the glass. Cold, normal. No reflection anomalies. I went back to bed, but as soon as I lay down, the tapping resumed, insistent, right against the pane, like someone standing on air outside. Grant woke this time. "You hear that?" "Yeah," I said. "Probably pipes or something." We both knew it wasn't. After a week, the tapping turned to pounding, full fist against the glass, hard enough to make the frame rattle. It happened around 02:30 every night. I started leaving the blinds closed, lights on low. Grant bought earplugs. Neither helped. One night, the pounding got so violent, I thought the window would shatter. I yelled at it, "Leave us the hell alone!" The noise stopped instantly. Dead silence. Grant and I stared at each other, breathing hard. We didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, we found the scratches. On the interior side of the door, 4 deep gouges running vertical, hard like fingernails trying to claw through from inside the room. Fresh wood shavings on the floor. The door was solid core, painted military tan. Those marks weren't there when we locked up the night before. We photographed them, showed the barracks manager. He shrugged. "Kids messing around before you moved in. We'll sand it." They never did. That was when I started feeling watched. Not just at night. During the day, even when Grant was there, I'd catch movement in my peripheral vision. A shape at the edge of the room. When I turned, nothing. But the hairs on my neck stayed up. Then Grant saw it clearly first. We were watching a movie on his laptop, screen off during a quiet scene. In the black reflection of the TV, I saw a face behind us. Pale, young, eyes wide, staring straight at the back of my head. Grant froze. "Lopez, there's someone standing right behind you." I whipped around. Empty space. But the air felt thick, like right before a storm. We turned every light on after that, slept with them blazing, didn't care about the electric bill or what the NCOs would say. The tapping never went back to soft. It escalated to rhythmic pounding, then scratching. Slow, deliberate drags across the glass from outside. I started isolating, skipped optional formations when I could, ate in my room, stopped talking much. Grant tried to get me to go to sick call. I refused. What was I supposed to say? A ghost is knocking on my window? They'd think I was losing it. Maybe I was. One night I couldn't take it. The pounding shook the whole frame. I stood at the window, fists clenched. "What do you want?" I shouted. No answer, just more pounding. Then silence. I felt it shift. Whatever it was moved from outside to inside. The room got colder. I turned slowly. In the corner by the closet, a shape, not solid. Outline of a soldier. I see us, boots, arms at sides, face in shadow. It didn't move. It just watched. I backed up until my calves hit the bunk. Grant was asleep, or pretending to be. I whispered his name. No response. I stayed like that until dawn. When the first light came through the blinds, the shape dissolved. I didn't sleep. That day I went AWOL for about 18 hours. Drove off-post, sat in my car in a Walmart parking lot, shaking. Came back before they could file the paperwork. The first sergeant sat me down. "Where were you, Private?" I told him I was sick. He didn't buy it, but let it slide with extra duty. The chaplain got involved next. I broke down in his office, told him everything. He listened without interrupting, said he'd heard similar stories from other barracks, suggested behavioral health. They evaluated me, severe anxiety, sleep disturbance, possible delusional features. No combat history, so they leaned toward adjustment disorder, meds, profiles. Eventually they moved me to a different room on another floor. But it didn't stop. I still feel it sometimes. A pressure at the back of my neck when I'm alone. A faint tap-tap-tap on glass, even when there's no window nearby. Grant PCS'd out a few months later. He texted me once. I still check reflections. "You?" I didn't answer. I wonder if it's still in 214, waiting at the window for the next private who thinks 4 walls and a door are enough to keep the dark out. I transferred bases eventually. But some nights, in a new room half the country away, I still wake up listening for that first soft tap, and I never leave the blinds open anymore. Chapter 5. The Final Shift. The pattern emerges. This is Staff Sergeant Kim. I served multiple tours, including 2 in Afghanistan and 1 advisory rotation in the Middle East, before landing back at Fort Hood in late 2024. By then, I was a platoon sergeant in a support battalion. Logistics mostly, but still high-tempo garrison life with constant field exercises, NTC rotations, and the usual army bureaucracy. I'd heard the barracks stories over the years, footsteps, voices, cold spots. I filed them under soldier folklore, the kind of thing privates tell each other to pass time on long CQ shifts. I didn't believe any of it until I lost 3 soldiers from my own platoon to mental health separations in less than 6 months. All 3 lived in the same cluster of barracks blocks, older troop housing near the division training areas, buildings with the same pre-2000 concrete and cinder block design. Specialist Alvarez, first one down, arrived sharp, motivated, good PT score. Within 4 months he was missing formations, claiming something followed him down the hallways at night. He described a shadow that matched his height and build, but moved independently. He started carrying his weapon everywhere, even to the latrine. Behavioral health called it paranoia, with command hallucinations. He was chaptered out on a mental health discharge. Then came Sergeant Patel. Steady NCO, 2 combat deployments, never a disciplinary issue. He lived 1 floor above Alvarez. Started reporting the same shadow, plus a voice that whispered his full name and rank from empty rooms. He lost sleep. Then appetite. Gained 20 pounds of stress weight in reverse. Dropped 30. One morning he didn't show for PT. We found him in the stairwell, sitting on the steps, rocking, repeating, "It knows where I sleep." He went straight to the psych ward at Darnall. Came back on meds, but the light was gone from his eyes. Transferred out before the year ended. The third was a private first-class Nguyen. The same Nguyen from earlier stories on the 3rd floor. He'd moved rooms twice already, but the pattern followed. Nightmares of being trapped, voices calling orders he couldn't obey, a pressure on his chest that made breathing hard. He attempted to overdose on over-the-counter sleep aids one night. We got him to medical in time. His chart read, acute suicidal ideation secondary to severe anxiety disorder. No prior history. No combat exposure. Just Fort Hood barracks. I started connecting the dots. All 3 described identical sensations. Being watched, named, weighed down. All reported cold spots or shadows in the same general areas of their buildings. All had clean psych evals on arrival. All deteriorated rapidly once settled in those blocks. I pulled records quietly, talked to other platoon sergeants, company first sergeants. The pattern wasn't isolated to my unit. Similar clusters in other battalions. Spikes in behavioral health referrals. Failed drug screens from guys who'd never touched anything before. Increased AWOL incidents tied to "I can't stay in that room." The common thread, the barracks themselves. One night I pulled staff duty in one of those buildings. 0400 walking the halls to check locks and lights. I heard crying. Soft, muffled, coming from room 312. Empty room. Vacant for weeks after the last occupant PCS'd. I keyed the door open with the master. Nothing. Bunk stripped, wall locker open and bare. But on the bottom bunk, neatly folded, a set of dog tags. Not mine. Not anyone currently assigned there. I read the name. Private E2 Daniel R. Kessler. KIA training accident, 1994. Vehicle rollover during a night live fire exercise on post. Official cause, driver error in low visibility. I turned the tags in to the Battalion S1 the next morning. Records confirmed Kessler had been assigned to that exact room before the accident. No one remembered leaving tags behind. That was the moment I stopped dismissing it. Something lingers in those walls, not always violent, not always visible, but persistent. It doesn't attack outright. It waits. It amplifies what's already there. The isolation of single soldier life, the monotony of garrison, the quiet fear that every soldier carries but never voices, the fear of failure, of not measuring up, of being alone even when surrounded. In a place like Fort Hood, where tens of thousands cycle through carrying combat scars or the weight of constant readiness, that pressure builds. Whatever is there feeds on it, turns cracks into fractures, turns exhaustion into breakdown. I documented everything I could, spoke to the chaplain, the behavioral health chief, even the post historian. No official acknowledgement, of course. Bases don't admit to hauntings. But off the record, people knew. An old first sergeant told me, "Some buildings remember the dead. Some remember the living who almost died here." He didn't elaborate. I requested a permanent change of station, cited family hardship. True enough, my wife was struggling stateside. Approved faster than expected. I left Fort Hood in early 2025, but I still wake up some nights listening for footsteps in a hallway that isn't there. Still check corners when I enter a room alone. Still wonder how many soldiers broke, not because they were weak, but because something in those barracks refused to let them stay whole. The pattern isn't random. It's deliberate, patient. It chooses the tired, the homesick, the ones already carrying invisible loads. And it keeps choosing. Fort Hood is a machine of war, powerful, necessary. But machines leave residue, echoes, and some echoes don't fade when the lights come on. I don't know what it is. A ghost? Residual energy? Collective trauma given form? And all I know is that it's real enough to end careers, to send good soldiers home in pieces. And until someone acknowledges it, really acknowledges it, the pattern will keep emerging. One broken soldier at a time. Chapter 6. Echoes in the Day Room. This is Sergeant Elena Vasquez. I was assigned to Fort Hood, now officially Fort Cavazos, but most of us still called it Hood, in summer 2025 as a platoon sergeant in an aviation maintenance company. By then, the base had seen name changes, new paint on old buildings, and the same endless cycle of soldiers coming and going. My platoon was spread across 2 barracks blocks, one newer wing for the NCOs and a connected older section where the junior enlisted stayed. The day room sat between them on the ground floor. Pool table, worn couches, vending machines, a big TV that never quite worked right. It was supposed to be the safe space, the place you went after duty to unwind, play cards, or just sit without someone barking orders. I didn't notice anything unusual at first. The day room smelled like burnt popcorn and old carpet, standard for Army rec areas. Soldiers drifted in after motor pool or flight line shifts. Some laughing, some quiet, most scrolling phones. But around October, the atmosphere shifted. Guys started avoiding it after dark. They'd come in for a quick soda, then leave fast, like they'd remembered something urgent elsewhere. When I asked why, they shrugged. "Just feels off, Sergeant." I chalked it up to seasonal blues. Shorter days, holiday season approaching, the usual garrison melancholy. But then the small things accumulated. One evening, I was pulling informal staff duty, checking the building before lights out. Around 21:30, the day room lights flickered once, hard, like a power surge. I walked in. Empty. TV off, chairs pushed in, pool cues racked. But the air felt thick, charged. Then I heard it. Low conversation from the far corner near the vending machines. 2 voices, male, military cadence. One saying, "We're short a driver for tomorrow's convoy." The other replying, "Tell the LT we'll make it work." Sounded like normal shop talk. I called out, "Who's still in here?" Silence. I stepped closer. No one. Just the hum of the fridge and the faint buzz of fluorescent tubes. I thought maybe echoes from the hallway or someone's phone on speaker. But it happened again the next week. Same corner, same approximate time. Different conversation this time. "Check your 6. Contact right, RPG." A sharp intake of breath. Then nothing. I stood there, frozen, de skin crawling. The day room was empty, doors closed, no windows open, no phones left behind. Just the voices, clear as if 2 soldiers were sitting right there debriefing a patrol. Word spread quietly. Junior enlisted started sharing stories. Private Morales said he'd seen a figure sitting at the pool table after everyone left. Back turned, shoulders hunched, cue in hand, but not moving. When he called out, the figure dissolved like smoke. Specialist Kim reported hearing laughter, harsh, bitter, coming from the couch where no one was sitting. One night, a group of privates were playing cards. The deck shuffled itself mid-game. Cards sliding across the table in perfect formation, as if dealt by invisible hands. They scattered, left everything behind. The worst was what happened to Corporal Reyes. He was one of my best. Reliable, quiet, and always first to volunteer for extra duty. He'd started staying in the day room late, saying it helped him think. One morning he didn't show for PT. We found him on the floor near the vending machines, curled fetal, shaking. He wouldn't speak at first. When he finally did, in the behavioral health intake room, he told the provider he'd heard his own voice. Not an echo. His exact voice, from a conversation he'd had months earlier during a field problem. It repeated everything I said, word for word, but angrier, like it was judging me. Then he said the room went dark, not lights out, but a blackness that swallowed the corners. Shapes moved in it, soldiers he recognized from old platoon photos on the wall, guys who'd been chaptered or transferred or, in one case, killed in a training accident years back. They stood silent, watching him. Reyes said he felt their disappointment like a physical weight. They knew I was going to break before I did. He was admitted to the psych ward that day. Acute dissociative episode, they called it. Possible psychotic break triggered by stress. But Reyes had no prior mental health history, no deployments, no red flags, just the day room. After that, I stopped using it after 2000. I made rounds myself, lights on full, door propped open. But the voices kept coming. Different snippets each time. Old radio traffic, arguments in formation, quiet confessions no one should have heard. One night I caught my own name. Vasquez needs to check on Reyes. He's not right. Spoken in my platoon leader's voice. I spun around. Empty room. My heart hammered so hard I tasted copper. I requested the day room be closed for renovations. Chain of command approved a temporary shutdown, said the vending machines needed servicing anyway. But even with it locked, soldiers reported hearing things through the walls. Muffled conversations. Laughter that cut off abruptly. The feeling of being observed from the darkened windows. IPCSD 6 months later. Before I left, I walked the empty day room one last time. Lights off, doors locked. I stood in the centre and spoke aloud. If you're here, let them go. They've given enough. No answer. Just the low hum of the building breathing, but I felt it. A pressure easing, like something had listened. Or maybe I just wanted to believe that. The day room reopened after I left. I still get texts from guys who stayed behind. It's quiet now, one wrote. Mostly. I don't ask for details. Some things you don't want confirmed. Fort Hood's barracks and common areas hold more than furniture and memories. They hold the weight of every soldier who passed through, every laugh, every fear, every moment of doubt. And sometimes, when the nights are long and the base is quiet, those echoes find a voice. They don't scream, they whisper, they remind. They wear you down, one conversation at a time, until the cracks show. I don't know if it's ghosts or grief given shape. All I know is that the day room wasn't a refuge, it was a mirror. And some reflections don't let you look away. Chapter 7. The Last Formation. This is Captain Daniel Torres, formerly Executive Officer of a cavalry squadron at Fort Cavazos. Still Fort Hood in most soldiers' minds, through mid-2025. I'd been there on and off since 2019. Long enough to see the base evolve, new housing blocks going up, old ones patched and repainted. The name change painted over Confederate markers like it could erase history. But some things don't get painted over. Some things stay etched deeper than concrete. By the time I took command of the company in late 2024, the barracks pattern was impossible to ignore. My unit occupied two connected buildings, Barracks 52 and 53, older troop quarters near the East Training Range. The soldiers called them the Echo Blocks. I laughed it off at first. Commanders don't entertain ghost stories. We fix problems with counseling statements, profiles, and chain of command action. But the numbers didn't lie. In 12 months, we lost 7 soldiers to mental health separations, did not combat vets with visible scars, mostly young specialists and privates on their first or second enlistment, clean records on arrival. All reported similar symptoms within 3 to 6 months of moving in, persistent feeling of being observed, auditory hallucinations, names called, orders given in empty rooms, sleep paralysis with chest pressure, unexplained scratches or bruises. Behavioral health logs showed a spike in referrals from those exact buildings, higher than any other company on post. The post surgeon quietly flagged it to higher. Nothing changed. Garrison stress, they said. High ops tempo, normal attrition. I started walking the halls myself at odd hours. Not official inspections, just after lights out, when the building settled. I'd listen. And I heard. First, it was footsteps. Not the heavy boots of a CQ runner. Lighter, uneven, like someone limping slightly. They'd start at the far end of the corridor, approach my position, then stop a few feet away. No shadow, no silhouette under the emergency lights. Just presence. Heavy, expectant. I'd speak into the empty air. Identify yourself. Nothing. The footsteps retreated. Every time. Then the formation calls. Around 03:30, some nights the stairwell would echo with a voice. Old-school drill sergeant bark, but tired, cracked. Fall in, damn it! Company, Attenhut! No one moved, because no one was there. but doors would creak open on their own. Soldiers stumbled out in PTs or boxers, bleary-eyed, looking for the source. They'd form up instinctively in the hallway, shoulders back, eyes forward, waiting for orders that never came. After 30 seconds, the voice would fade. The soldiers would shuffle back to bed, shaken, silent. No one joked about it anymore. One night I stayed late in the orderly room finishing reports. Around 0400, the building-wide PA crackled. Static first, then clear. All personnel report to the quad for formation. Immediate. The PA system hadn't been used for announcements since COVID. It was locked down, key-controlled. I ran to the hallway. No one at the console. But outside, under the sodium lights, soldiers were already forming up. Dozens of them from every floor, standing in perfect ranks in the cold night air. No NCO had called it. No siren. Just the voice on the PA. I stepped out. At ease, I said. They relaxed, but didn't break formation. Their faces were pale, eyes wide, but focused forward. I walked the line. Some were shivering, not from cold. One private whispered, "Captain." It's still calling us. I looked where they stared, the empty quad beyond the formation. Nothing visible. But the air felt wrong. Thicker, colder, like standing in front of an open freezer door. Then the voice returned, not over PA this time, from everywhere and nowhere. Low, almost conversational. They're late again. Always late. It wasn't angry. It was resigned. Sad. Like a sergeant who'd waited years for a head count that never balanced. The formation held for maybe 2 minutes. Then, one by one, the soldiers blinked, shook their heads, looked around, confused. "What are we doing out here, sir?" someone asked. They drifted back inside without another word. No panic. Just quiet acceptance. Like they'd done this before. I filed an incident report the next day. Described it as unauthorized muster due to possible prank or system malfunction. Maintenance checked the PA. Nothing wrong. No logs of activation. The chaplain offered to do a blessing walkthrough. I let him. Holy water, prayers, incense. The building smelled like church for a week. The footsteps stopped for 3 nights. Then they came back softer, almost polite. I requested a company-wide barracks move. Denied. Logistics nightmare. No available space. I pushed harder. Cited the mental health data, the referrals, the pattern. Finally got partial approval. High-risk soldiers moved first. The rest stayed. My last night on post, I walked the halls one final time. No footsteps, no voice. Just silence so deep it hurt. I stopped outside room 108, still vacant after Hayes's story. The door was ajar. I pushed it open. Empty bunk, empty locker. But on the wall, above where the heater used to sit, someone had scratched a single line. "We're still here." I closed the door, locked it, walked out. I left Fort Cavazos 2 weeks later. Permanent change of station to a stateside post with new construction and no history. My family noticed I checked corners more, woke easier at odd hours. I told them it was adjustment. Maybe it is. But I still see them sometimes, in dreams or half-awake moments, a company in formation under floodlights. Faces I recognize from rosters long gone. Waiting. Always waiting for the last soldier to fall in. The base keeps turning. New soldiers arrive every week. They unpack, hang posters, complain about the smell. They don't know yet, but they will. The echoes don't leave when you do. They wait for the next formation. And when the voice calls again, someone will answer, because in those barracks, no one ever really stands down.